Hey man, we're gonna break in the new gear, the new Washington football gear with a dub today. Nah. Once again, the Washington football team just keeps on losing, keeps on bringing us misery for 3 hours every Sunday. With a 27-30 loss to the Detroit Lions, the 3-5, I believe, Detroit Lions, not 4-5 Detroit Lions. Yeah. I'm going to try to keep this one short, guys, because of the fact that we don't really want to talk about this loss because it was just that devastating. The game started off very, very bad for Washington in that they were down by a lot, right? As is the case every single week. And then they sort of scrapped their way back and eventually tied the game at 24-24. Then the Lions scored a field goal. And then Washington responded with a field goal. And then we all saw what happened at the end of the game. Yeah, Scott Turner's play calling wasn't great throughout the game. He did have some nice play calls, I'll give him that. But there was a couple of handoffs, maybe not handoffs, but like tosses to the backfield, behind the line of scrimmage on like 2nd and 2. And even after them not like working in throughout the course of the game, and especially earlier in the game, didn't give up any sacks, I believe, in this game. Maybe one? I'm not sure. But our offensive line actually wasn't that bad, even after Cornelius Lucas went out towards, I believe it was the second half, and Morgan Moses had to play at left tackle. We remained the only team to not score points on opening drives. We all saw that graphic posted up earlier in the game, and it stood still. It stood after Washington failed to even get a field goal in the opening drive when they looked like they were getting some momentum, driving down the field because of penalties, I believe a sack as well. This team is so bad, guys. Every single week, we all watch this team play for 3 hours every Sunday, at least for this season, every Sunday, just for them to throw up in our faces every week, man. Especially for those young fans out there who don't know anything about winning for this franchise besides one RG3 year, which didn't really amount to much, right? Because they lost in the wild card round. It's just been misery. Kendall Fuller, the stout cornerback, for the last couple games. Yeah, actually, this game was probably not his best game. He did give up a long touchdown to start the game and did give up some plays that he usually hasn't given up this season. I don't put all the blame on Kendall Fuller, though. It was a bad game, right? It was his worst game of the season, but he's still a great corner, and I look for him to bounce back next week. Peyton Barber, man. Why the you-know-what was this man's getting carries in the beginning of the game? Like, there's a reason why we fell to that deficit early on. I mean, I'm not saying the running game was totally to blame for that, but adding in Antonio Gibson maybe more in the receiving game, or J.D. McKissic, who's actually... I hate to say this for Antonio Gibson fans like myself, but he's been balling this season. He's arguably been our best running back, at least in the pass game, and finding the holes. Because Antonio Gibson, he's still improving when it comes to his vision. I believe he'll get there at some point. I don't believe he'll ever have that true great vision of a top 5 running back or anything, but I think he will get it better in that aspect with some time. But Peyton Barber was stealing carries towards the beginning of the game. Like, what? Why? I mean... I totally agree with what people said in the early part of the season, in that if we were going to keep Peyton Barber, we should have just kept Adrian Peterson. I know today is not the best day to say that because Adrian Peterson didn't perform well, but Peyton Barber is not... He's just meh. I saw a tweet out there that with a GIF of someone going to sleep, and they posted every time Peyton Barber gets the ball in the backfield, and I feel sort of the same way. He's just meh, man. He's just meh. But, yeah... Terry is so good, man. He's so good. I know he had a fumble. I believe it was his first fumble in his collegiate and professional career, which is insane, but shows you how good Terry is. He had that bad fumble, but I think he sort of bounced back towards the end of the game and didn't score a touchdown, unfortunately, but, man, he just puts in the work. He just puts in the work and was a big part of that mini comeback that we have. Kevin Pierre-Louis, and then someone else who I mentioned towards the end of this video. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing with these dumb penalties? I know towards the beginning of the game, that penalty where he made contact with the, I believe it was the chin strap. I know a lot of people think it's Bush League because in the 2000s that wouldn't have been called a penalty. But in today's game, by the letter of the law, that's a penalty. And it was so unnecessary because the sack was already a done deal. he had a wide open lane to the sack. And what is going on with their rush defense? DeAndre Swift, he didn't break out like the Giants running backs last week, but man, oh man, towards the beginning of the game, he was solid on the run. I believe that the rush defense did improve towards the end of the game, which is great. That's usually been the case the last couple of weeks. Our defense in the beginning of the game, the first half has been atrocious, but then it has bounced back somewhat towards the end of the game. But still, we got to get that fixed, man. We have a solid pass defense. I'll mention something about that pass defense toward the end of this video, but we have a solid pass defense. We just need to improve that rush defense, in my opinion, to be at least a very, very sound defense. Secondary is playing doo-doo for a good part of the game up until maybe the end of the third quarter, and then started to ramp things up. But by then, that didn't have to be the case if they just played well in the beginning of the game. Much like the offense, right? The offense didn't have to score 27 points, right, in such a quick amount of time if they didn't fall behind in the beginning part of the game, as they had the last 3 weeks, minus the Cowboys week. So, yeah, huge catch by Cam Sims on, I believe it was a fourth down. Logan Thomas also had a huge catch. We all saw that, 4th and 13, made a huge catch. Cam Sims, man, especially out of those two, he could be someone who will stick around on this team for a long, long time. I don't believe he will be a starter. I really don't. At least on a good Washington football team, I don't believe he should be a starter, but maybe a good rotational piece. I definitely would take him over Steven Sims. A lot of people were overhyping Steven Sims in the offseason. I was not one of them. I wasn't hyping Cam Sims either, to be fair, but Cam Sims has just shown me more, man. I think Cam Sims is is the better Sims at this point. I don't know if that's saying much, but it is what it is. Hopkins missed another kick in the beginning of the game, but I think he bounced back a little bit with that kick at the end of the game. It took guts, I know it was a long kick. I believe it was a 41-yarder, 42-yarder, but still made it at the end of the game in crunch time. So I don't think Hopkins is the answer at kicker for us for the foreseeable future, because I think he's overrated, much like something I'll again mention later. But he sort of bounced back with that kick at the end of the game, to be fair. J.D. McKissic looked good throughout the game. Once again, he was catching balls out of the backfield, had great vision, and was finding the right holes in the run game. And he's been a solid back. He's arguably been our best back to date. I know he hasn't generated as many touchdowns. He did score one today, but in terms of just strictly from the 30 of our side to the 30 of the other side, I believe he's been pretty solid, right? It's just in the red zone, Antonio Gibson has been balling and scoring touchdowns, and he scored 2 today. Like I mentioned earlier, Terry McLaurin fumble was unfortunate, but I don't see that as being a huge problem. Fingers crossed for the foreseeable future. I think Terry is just a stud, man. He's just a stud. He'll bounce back next week. There's a second 20 when we allowed the Lions to gain 23 yards. Just unacceptable, man. And I believe that was towards the beginning of the game. Yeah, again, we wouldn't have had to make that comeback if in the beginning part of the game we actually played sound defense, played sound offense. But every single week it seems like we just have to catch up. And that's very nerve-wracking for the fans, but also two, that's just not the right way to play football. And there's a reason why this team is now 2-7 right now and is probably out of contention in this division at this point. I mean, I know statistically they are, but in my opinion, they are already out of contention. In this weak Division 2, it says a lot about this team and how atrocious it is. Clean game for Stafford. I don't think this was talked about enough in the telecast and also on Twitter. This guy was throwing in clean pockets most of the time. Like, our defense was just not generating pressure for a huge part of the game. And that's a problem. You have 4 or 5 first rounders on that defensive line. You should generate pressure, but that was not the case today. That was not the case last week. It's sort of becoming a problem. We need to get that fixed, or else it's going to continue to be a big problem, and that's unfortunate because there's so much talent on that defensive line, even though I think it's slightly overrated at this point. But yeah, clean game for Stafford. That's the name of the game. If you can generate pressure, you have a good chance of winning. We didn't do that today, and we lost. There's people who recognized the McKissic drop in the game. And again, I still think McKissic had a very solid game, and Smith wasn't able to find him on a couple times throughout the game, and one time twice actually, it could have been touchdowns, easy touchdowns, but he just didn't find him. That's unfortunate, but we did still make that comeback. I believe both of them were in the second half. Huge catch by Thomas once again, 4th and 13. Took big guts by Riverboat Ron. A lot of people on Twitter said they disagreed with the play call before it was called, but I actually agreed with it. 4th and 13, what do you have to lose? You're down, I believe at that point it was 3-20. Try to score a touchdown, right? Try to score a touchdown, but the refs, there was a big non-penalty before that big penalty towards the end of the game when Chase Young swiped at the helmet of Matthew Stafford, and they originally called a flag, and we're going to say that it was a roughing the passer, or I believe a face mask penalty, but they picked it up, rightfully so, because it was just a gloss over of the helmet. It wasn't really, he wasn't holding on to the helmet or anything, so good on them. But good playing by Alex Smith, man. Alex Smith, you know how I felt about him on this channel, guys. I felt that, great story. I just didn't, and still don't really think he is a great quarterback in this league at this point, right? He was in the past, but at this point he just isn't. And I've been one of his harshest critics, to be honest. But today, man, he balled out. For all those people who look at stats, you're gonna say, "Oh, he didn't score any touchdowns on the ground or through the air," but no, he had a very solid game. Went over 300 yards second consecutive week, which is something for check down Alex, right? But no, he was very solid, finding the right man most of the time. Although J.D. McKissic was open twice and he just missed him. Terry McLaurin could have got more involved actually, but no, solid game for Alex Smith. Can't really complain too much about his performance today. But at the same time, with the overall team, now we have to talk about what happened at the end. Chase Young, that was a terrible play. I look for an apology. Maybe he has made an apology in his presser at this point. I'm not sure by the time this video is uploaded, but terrible play. I know, again, in the 2000s, that wouldn't have been called a penalty, but by the letter of the law, that is a penalty. That was so unnecessary. Matthew Stafford already overthrew his receiver, but, I mean, that took the Detroit Lions with 16 seconds left, right? It was a tie game, 27-27, 16 seconds left. A lot of us thought we were going into overtime. I know the Lions had 3 timeouts, but still, a lot of us thought we were going to overtime. And then that 15-yard penalty put the Lions from the 35 to the 50-yard line, midfield. And all they needed was about 10, 15 yards with a guy in Matt Prater who can make kicks from a long distance. He's not super accurate, but he has a leg. And Chase Young made the penalty. Detroit ran 3 to 4 plays. I believe it was, 3 to 4 plays. It's 16 seconds. And Matt Stafford drove the team down the field, and Prater kicked a 59-yard field goal. Looked like it would have been good from 63, 64 yards to win the game, 30-27. And again, Washington's 2-7. Detroit, I believe, is 4-5. Again, guys, the misery continues even amidst the global pandemic. As I've been saying for weeks, this team can't bring us hope, can't bring us joy. That says a lot about the state of the franchise. I still believe we're getting better off the field, but I mean, how many times have we heard that every single year? It's time to get better on the field. No excuses.